Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday, September 4th. Today is day 334. I'm back in DC, and if you listen to these updates daily, you might ask why. And one of the things we can do is we can use them as prayer prompts. If you're asking the question, how do we respond? Think of these as specific guides of ways that we should pray. Today, the executive director of the Israeli human rights group, B'Tselem, her name is Yuli Novak, presented before the UN Security Council. And I wanted to start by her words. She said, on Sunday, we woke up to the news that 6 Israeli hostages were executed by Hamas, just before soldiers reached them in a tunnel in Gaza. Another 6 added to the tens of thousands of people in this land who should not have died this past year. During this week, hundreds of thousands of Israelis have taken to the streets. They feel angry, desperate, and betrayed by their government. They have understood, perhaps for the first time, that the Israeli government does not want to return hostages in a deal, but to continue the war indefinitely. They see that the occupation and the settlements matter more than life, and not only of Palestinians. Novak added that since the criminal Hamas-led attacks on October 7th, I and every Israeli, these are her words, I and every Israeli I know have been living in deep anxiety. The government is cynically exploiting our collective trauma to violently advance its project of cementing Israeli control over the entire land. To do that, it is waging war on the entire Palestinian people, including committing war crimes almost daily. Those are the words of the executive director of the Israeli human rights group, B'Tselem. The Times of Israel reported today that Netanyahu told the Israeli Defense Forces to prepare for the possibility of Israel taking over the distribution of humanitarian aid in Gaza. In other words, he asked them to examine the logistics, the operational mechanisms, the manpower required for what it would look like if Israel took control of humanitarian distribution. The IDF report says the IDF has estimated that the full military governance of Gaza would cost Israel 40 billion shekels. That's almost 11 billion US dollars a year. Such a move would carry the implications of international law and would make Israel increasingly responsible for the residents of the Gaza Strip. And I just want to note, consider that Israel has been blocking aid from getting into Gaza. And now they're talking about the possibility of being the primary ones responsible for the distribution of humanitarian aid. If that is not disconcerting, I don't know what is. Netanyahu also restated his determination to maintain military control over the Philadelphia corridor at the Gaza-Egypt border, which could further signal the intentionality of Israel to increasingly move towards military governance in Gaza. Despite U.S. claims to the contrary, including Samantha Power at U.S. Aid, when she spoke before Congress in the spring, there have been numerous reports that Israel has stated that Hamas keeps commandeering humanitarian aid that is brought into the Gaza Strip. But U.S. claims to the contrary come from Samantha Powers and other U.S. officials. Israel does not need to retain the control of the Philadelphia corridor for security reasons, and that is not a sufficient reason to hamper ceasefire or hostage talks, says the former War Cabinet member Benny Gantz. He said that yesterday, accusing Prime Minister Netanyahu of putting his own interests above those of Israel. The Biden administration is expected to submit a new, more detailed draft proposal for a hostage ceasefire deal, the Wall Street Journal reported, citing American officials who said that the draft proposal will detail exactly how hostage exchanges should proceed, under what conditions the parties may resume fighting. The proposal would specify how long Israel could remain in the Philadelphia corridor. Polio vaccinations in central Gaza have, quote, surpassed the target. In the campaign, according to the World Health Organization yesterday, the UN agency said the difference was likely to result in an underestimate of the population of the region, adding that localized fighting pauses had been going well. That was from BBC News. Now, Gaza's health ministry says 42 Palestinians were killed and 107 wounded in the last 24 hours. At least 6 Palestinians were killed in an attack on Na'ama College. I talked about that previously, where people had been sheltering. Dozens more are buried under the rubble. Palestinian children are being vaccinated against polio in Deir al-Balah. That's one of the places of a humanitarian pause, while there are loud explosions in Barej and Maghazi refugee camps that are excluded from that humanitarian pause right next door. Those refugee camps have been excluded from the vaccination campaign. Israeli forces were again operating in the West Bank in Tulkarem yesterday. According to the New York Times, they had withdrawn last week and then entered again. The assault on the West Bank is now in its 8th day. At least 33 Palestinians have been killed since last Wednesday, the 28th of August, 130 Palestinians wounded, the vast majority in Jenin. A Palestinian woman testified an Israeli soldier sexually harassed her at a checkpoint in Hebron 2 weeks ago. A wave of testimonies from local women have come forward, speaking about the humiliating treatment they have received from soldiers at checkpoints since the beginning of the war, especially in the last few weeks. The U.S. Department of Justice filed criminal charges against 6 Hamas leaders, including Yahya Sinwar, in connection to the October 7th massacres, the first criminal step taken by the Justice Department to hold individuals accountable for the assault. The UK has defended its decision to suspend some of its arms exports to Israel after Netanyahu called the decision shameful. Britain's defense secretary insisted that his country is a staunch ally of Israel, but said the decision would not weaken Israel's security. The U.S. privately warned against the UK suspending arms amid concerns that it would damage efforts to broker a ceasefire, according to a senior U.S. official. The IDF said today that 70 rockets were fired from Lebanon at northern Israel. Hezbollah was the one firing the rockets. Fires broke out in several locations in Kiryat Shimona in northern Israel as a result of the barrage. An Egyptian president, al-Sisi, was set to meet with Erdogan today, marking the first presidential visit between the two countries in 12 years. The self-styled Islamic State, ISIS or Daesh in Arabic, yesterday claimed responsibility for this week's suicide bombing in Kabul. House Democrats launched a probe into Trump's alleged acceptance of $10 million from the Egyptian government during his 2016 presidential campaign, as well as whether allies quashed a subsequent investigation in the matter. This was written about in a detailed way in the Washington Post several weeks ago. And the Washington Post found Egyptian government withdrew the funds shortly after Trump paid the same amount to his own campaign, $10 million. I heard from a CMEP board member today whose child is a student at the University of Pittsburgh. There was a stabbing attack there of 2 Jewish students. According to ABC News, a 52-year-old suspect with no known affiliation to the school was wearing a keffiyeh. He was charged with felony aggravated assault after he allegedly used a glass bottle to hit 2 students on the campus of the University of Pittsburgh, a city newspaper reported on Saturday. The man was seen on a surveillance video at a table across the street from the students as they were walking Friday evening. Police say he ran across the street and hit them behind their heads with the bottle. The students were wearing traditional Jewish yarmulke head coverings. They were treated at the scene. One had cuts on his face, another cuts on the neck. The university was in contact with Hillel, a Jewish university group, Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh. Agents from the FBI are investigating if this was a hate crime. The university called it an appalling incident, but said there was no ongoing threat to the public. Such horrible acts of hatred and violence are not the way forward. So we have to figure out a better way to speak out against such attacks, to move forward in our advocacy. We have to show a way to say that death and violence can no longer continue, and that peace and justice and righteousness and human rights are the only way forward to end violence and suffering. In prepping the notes for tonight, I read about a Georgia school shooting where 4 people were killed, and one of our staff members has young children, youth in that area, and I checked in with her. She said her children are safe. And after experiencing the relief of that news, we just commiserated on wavering between being so sad and so angry, a common feeling these past 11 months. And my thought as we were texting was this overwhelming feeling that I wouldn't know how to live through it if someone I loved in the midst of all of this were lost by such a devastating, brutal attack at a school. And it feels like we've lost so much already. And yet I, sitting here, am not even in the middle of it. We're only adjacent to it. So might God go before us. Do not give up hope. Continue in your efforts towards peace. In the name of Christ. Amen.